Hello, everybody. Hello. This is Justin Rubin of Justin and Max Games, and today I'm going to do a 2/3 player review of the game Dune Imperium. And my wife bought this not so long ago. There's been a huge amount of interest in the game, and it's by the same designer as Clank, which we bought. It seems now decades ago, of course, in gaming time. It was probably one of the earliest games we bought after getting into the hobby. A lot of fun game, not a heavyweight game, and definitely a lot of randomness because it was you know, something's going to come out of the bag and you don't know what, and you don't know when because card shuffling and what's coming up in a row because as a deck builder you don't know what's going to come up at a certain time, and anything can come up, right? It could be very powerful cards and not so powerful cards, and there was always available cards, the cards that you always know you can get. Well, in Dune Imperium there's a lot of similar mechanisms where there's cards that you could always buy, and you don't know what's going to come up in the row. We do use the variant that a lot of people have talked about on BGG, where at the end of everyone buying cards, the last card kind of goes out of the row and it's replaced, just to keep things kind of going. And someone said it's kind of thematic, like one of the worms comes up and gets you. Anyway, so Dune Imperium. I was going to do this inside, but it is just so hot here in Duluth today. It was just, I was going to turn off the fans because it was warm inside. I couldn't turn off the fans, but if I had the fans on, you wouldn't be able to hear me because we have the high fans going. So just came outside and I'm going to do it. You could see a lot of pictures of the game, so I don't want to worry about, showing you the board and all. Maybe I'll show a picture later on on BGG or something like that. I'll upload something. Anyway, so my thoughts about the game. Uh, at two players, you have to use a deck of cards to determine where a virtual third player would go. And this did create some tension as you didn't know where they were going to go. And in some ways, it was totally random where they went because it was a deck of cards. So you couldn't psychologically think about, where would a third player want to go? They just could take a place, and it could be something that's advantageous because they just ignore what you're doing. And sometimes, of course, it could be something that you were going to go for. I like the fact that in this game, there's only a few ways of getting points, and that you're trying to get a certain amount of points. You're not just sort of waiting to the end of the game and someone has, 132 and you have 125, and that's how the winner is determined. Someone's trying to get 10 points, and that's it. And that's not so easy. It is easy to get 3 or 4 points in the game, but creeping up, and it's easy to ju- you know leapfrog somebody else, especially when you get an alliance and you've taken an alliance away from somebody else. We played this game now 3 times, twice just myself and my wife Erica, and then once with Max. Thank goodness he's back playing. He really wanted to play this game. We watched the movie, the original movie from 40 years ago, which I tried many times as a kid and I never knew what was going on and I kept on giving up on it. This time we watched it from beginning to end, and we still didn't quite understand what was going on, but we had a good time with it. At least I got a framework for who some of the characters were in the game. I don't like playing a game that has a theme, based on an intellectual property, as they say these days, and I have no idea what that is. I want to at least have some in. So at a two-player count with those neutral cards, we enjoyed it very much. I thought I was going to walk away with the first game. I was way ahead, and Erica was able to connive her way to leapfrog me. But it took the full 10 rounds to get to those 10 points. Then in the second game that we played, I eked it out by a point. But in the 3-player game that we just did, just an hour ago or so, I had a much more interesting time because the three-way psychology was at play. Everyone's hanging on to these, intrigue cards, which can be kind of bluffing. Oh, you have 2 of them or 3 of them. Should I even try to, go into combat and really expend a lot of my resources doing that, or is it just a waste of time? I like that aspect of it. I really think this is a game that's going to see an expansion, probably in not so distant future, and I'll tell you a few reasons why. Yes, there's a lot of randomness in it. It's almost a game that's two-sided. On one side, you have to be very strategic in what cards you're buying, hoping that they come back when you need them, so you can get certain track movement or get the abilities that you want, or you can activate the abilities on the cards when you want them. And I think that's really, really interesting. And then, of course, the randomness is who knows what intrigue card you're going to get and when you're going to get it. I felt that was a little bit of a disconnect sometimes because you might get three or four of these intrigue cards, and who knows what you're going to get. Tim is here. I'm glad I got. Tim says, I love deck builders, but I'm starting to only want to play board games with a literal board. So this works. Yes. You haven't played it though. This one though. Yes. I do like it. We got it on sale. I think it was on one of those Amazon sales. And I like it, but I almost felt, and I've talked about this with some people on Board Game Geek, the Solari, the money, so to speak, in the game. There's a bunch of spaces to use it, but some of them are only once in the game. So once you've used money, getting money later on in the game seems not so interesting unless you have a couple of cards that will give you some type of an advantage with it, or be able to spend it for something. Maybe even at 1 point. Max was able to spend his money for 1 point once in the game. But it seems that the money could be used, with a game with real intrigue and psychological warfare, which this boils down to, and which I really like in the game. I wanted it to be just a little bit more dynamic. That you see someone that has a whole bunch of these resources. What are they going to use them for? Well, on the board you could see they can only use them for a few things. And once that's happened, sometimes it's like diminishing. So I felt that, I thought about, well, these intrigue cards, which are so random. And my wife was very frustrated with this last game. She bought a bunch of intrigue cards, and she didn't get really anything that was useful when she got them. I felt that maybe, for 5 Solari, you get 2 cards, keeping 1. Or 10 Solari, getting 3 cards, keeping 1. Again, some way of using the money in a way that can give you some type of an advantage later on in the game. Or maybe using 10 Solari, that when you move up on a track, you move 2 places on a track. Therefore, you could see someone getting a lot of money. That's the only thing in the game that really kind of bugged me, was the randomness of the cards, of the intrigue cards. I think I got 2 in the game, and I was able to use both of them very powerfully. Max got a whole bunch, and he used them well enough, but at least a couple of them really didn't have any value. Plus some other way of using Solari. Now, some people on BGG says, well, that's just the game, money has value early in the game to get your extra meeple, because you have to spend $8 to get your extra meeple. And then later on in the game, it has less effect unless you're going to go to that one space that gets you either the Mentat, which is basically a free card and going last, or what's the other one, where you get to put 4 cubes, 4 soldiers or whatever in your garrison, which you have to then deploy in some other way. Now, those are interesting things. I just wanted a little bit more there, or maybe a different way of using spice, a little bit more. It was just almost like I was just wanting a little bit more with everything. But did we have a great time with 3 players? Yeah, I totally had a great time with 3 players. We didn't have to do all 10 rounds. I was able to get to the 10-point threshold in round 8, I think. And that felt about as long as the game really should be. When I played with my wife, I felt the game maybe went on maybe 1 or 2 rounds too long. This one felt a little bit more right. I know that on the app, oh my gosh, it's so windy here. I know that on the app, there is also like these missions where every round there's something different that occurs. I'd like to try that out. But I think this is a game that is just begging for an expansion to make it even more tense than it already is. Do I like the game? Absolutely. Would I recommend it even in a 2-player count? Yes. It's a little bit buggy on 2 players. Just the fact that you have to, I have to remember, oh, it's my turn, so I got to turn this card over just to see what, where something is going to be blocked. It's interesting enough though with 2 players. Don't get me wrong. I liked it a lot more with 3, and I think with 4, it might be even more interesting because there's less spaces that would be available. It's not, in a game like Lorenzo the Magnificent. Is that what it's called? Lorenzo, anyway. Uh, you you have less spaces in lower player counts. In here, it's the same amount of spaces regardless of the player count. It's just who's going to take what. So in 4 players, what you're going to have, you might just buy cards and just, say, oh, I'm not going to use my agent this turn, which I did one turn. I just didn't use all my agents. You don't feel compelled that you always have to use agents. Anyway, I'm going on kind of long with the game. I do like it very much. I'm right now right around an 8, and I'm hoping that an expansion is going to boost it up even more. I almost feel sometimes like this was the game. I'm probably wrong here. I remember when my favorite game, probably one of my favorite all-time games, Edge of Darkness by John D. Clare. Mystic Vale was the game that came out because they said, oh, Edge of Darkness was going to be too complicated. This one feels like what Clank should have been, but it was just maybe too complicated at the time. But I feel there could be even more. Anyway, I'm going to let it go there. I've already talked for about 10 minutes. I'm glad that Tim joined me. That's great. I've never done these live things with someone actually chatting. I'm going to reply and say, thanks for coming to my live chat. I'm out here in the open. People are driving away and all sorts of other things. All right. Really good game.